Hello and welcome back to That Old Shop. My name is Mike Scott. This is where we work on things that we shouldn't be working on, or that we'd rather be working on other things, what I'm trying to say. I'm going to put a lot of time into the Suburban here, the tow vehicle for moving shop items down to where we plan on moving to put them in storage. So one trip I was on, I thought I picked up some bad gas because the thing just ran terrible right after getting the gas, and I've driven hundreds of miles, put several tankfuls through it, put some fuel injector cleaner through there, changed the filter several times. After the third filter, I thought, hey, I'm going to cut one of these open and see how dirty it is, because this is ridiculous. The amount of problems I was having. I cut one open and it looked just clean as can be. So started researching other things and took it to a couple of shops. One charged me $200 for doing nothing. Another shop charged me nothing for telling me what the problem was. So it's a hit or miss nowadays with shops, mechanics. Some of them are like doctors, you know, they don't really do anything, but they still want to be paid. They don't fix anything. So another trip I was on with my wife, we got stranded because it threw a security code, and the shop we took it to, which was a GM dealer shop, they said it was possibly the worn ignition key. So we started using another key that wasn't as worn, didn't really have any trouble with it, but I didn't want to get stranded. So I changed the ignition lock cylinder in the steering column. I figured, well, if the key is pretty worn, the inside of the lock cylinder must be worn as well, and didn't want to take the chance. So I ordered a new lock cylinder with keys, swapped it out, then the vehicle wouldn't start. And before doing that, I had researched online, YouTube mainly, different ways of resetting that or relearning the computer when you change a part like that, when you change that specific part. So there was a couple of different procedures. I did them both after changing it, and it just still wouldn't start. So I had to pay to have the vehicle towed into a shop, and of course they had it for about a week and a half, and it started every day, multiple times a day for them. So in the process of me stopping working on it, getting it towed, the thing started working. So now I don't know what to do as far as that. I got a procedure from that was a dealer that I had it towed to, so he printed out me the procedure in case that does happen, to reset it. And I've read about a couple more procedures, so I've got like 3 more procedures now in case that happens. But abandoning the fuel filter situation, because I cut the one open and it didn't appear to be all crudded up, you know, for how bad it was running. I thought it'd be a lot of stuff in there, but it was like almost immaculate, like a new filter. It was a pretty new filter, and I had been changing the filters, and it would improve the situation, the idling situation. Just wouldn't idle. I'd have to 2-foot drive it after getting 1 tank full of gas, hundreds of miles. So I changed by the time I changed the filter the 3rd time, it didn't really improve it. So that's when I decided to cut that one open that I took off, and investigate other things and get more input from other shops and try to figure out what the problem was. So I elected to basically do a tune-up on it, change the plugs, the plug wires, the cap, and the rotor. And that seems to have improved it. It's still got a little flutter to it. So I got a new coil, It's going to replace that and an ignition module, which is mounted right next to the coil, and I'll show you here. But I pulled out the parts. Was going to first replace the ignition coil, drive it and see if that improved it, and then consider doing the ignition module. If not, I was just going to hang on to the parts in case, you know, that part went bad. It is an older vehicle, but it's not the original parts, I know, because I changed them after I purchased the vehicle. With 136,000 on it, it's got about 190 now. So I got the coil out and the ignition control module, and the coil looks like the right one. The ignition control module wasn't anything like what's on the vehicle. So I bought the parts at Napa, took that part back to Napa, brought him in a picture of my existing control module that's on the vehicle. And so he returned that one and sold me another one. The one I returned was $60 some. The correct one was $160 some, $100 more. And it just had one connection on it, and the one that I returned, the incorrect one, had 3 connections on it. So I looked online, other places I could purchase it. Yeah, I could get it maybe $30 cheaper, but by the time you pay the shipping, of course, and you know, if you have something wrong with that part, you know, it's harder to return things you bought online. So I kept it. So I put about $400 of tune-up parts into it. But one of the problems that I had is the standoffs for the and the separators for the spark plug wires were just the original GM ones, and of course there's plastic parts associated with the separators, and they're all broke, and the wires were not always laying in the correct places, and I was zip tying them up temporarily till we got done with the move. Then I was gonna, you know, go over the vehicle and, you know, replace a lot of parts like that. But I'm having to do that now when we're still trying to find a place to move into, which has been proving to be a challenge. Just because we want a more rural property, and there's just fewer of those, and then sometimes you find them and you're too close to a floodplain, or, you know, the interstate's going to be extended right next to the property, or things like that. So, you know, I'm back to working on the vehicle and doing a little bit, and I'll show you what I'm doing on my garage floor to try to correct some issues with the existing home we're in now with the garage floor, and some of the challenges there and some of the successes. With the vehicle and the wire looms, or the wire separators, whatever you want to call them, I wasn't able to find anything decent at the auto parts stores, and I'm in an area where we have all the auto parts stores, you know, Advance and AutoZone and O'Reilly's and Napa, you know, we got them all. So I took the time to go around to all of them. So I just put the wires on. I wanted to support and separate the wires correctly, so I didn't, you know, damage the wires. So, but I had to order something online. So this is a product I got from SK Speed Racing Equipment. Summit didn't even have anything decent. So that's what I got. I'm not sure about the plastic pieces here. I did buy something similar to this, a smaller set from O'Reilly's, and the plastic parts were just brittle as can be. You went to slide them on the metal bracket, and they were just breaking right in my hand. So I think it was just defective material. It was a glass-filled plastic, probably was just degraded material when the parts were made, I'm sure. I spent 20 years in that trade, so know a little bit about it. And that seemed what that issue was. That's what I got. So I gotta tear off some stuff here, straighten out the wires. I'm gonna just replace the coil and the control module, $160. It's a Delphi product, but it's made, guess where? In China. So I used to mold parts for this company, and they have some pretty junky molds, pretty bad shape. So this is one of the parts I checked online, and I can find it for maybe $130, but by the time you pay the shipping, like I already stated, not worth the hassle. Okay, I'm gonna rip some stuff off here. The engine's pretty hot. I just came back from the parts store, so I'm gonna tear a lot of the air cleaner paraphernalia off there. There's some more air circulation through here, and the engine will have more time to cool down, or better be able to cool down because of more airflow. Then I'll wheel you around and show you what I got going on with my garage floor. And this will give me more room to get at the spark plug wires. It's not as hard as plastic as the ones I got from O'Reilly's, which were they're a gasket brand. So I think that'll work. We'll see how it stands up to the heat. All I have now is a bunch of just black separators. I'll show you some. Items like these that didn't have any type of bracket. It was just a separator. So I put a lot of these on. They were cheap. I was able to find them locally. So I got a lot of these on there to keep the wires from getting messed up until I receive this. So this kit comes with 8 brackets. And it was one of the few kits that came with that many brackets with the separators. And then it has just 4 more separators, 2 4-wire, 2 2-wire. So that's a Moroso kit. That's the part number 0171-C. 0171-C, Moroso. Okay, so what I got going on in this garage, and this is a 2-car garage. This is 1 bay, and I put up a wall in the middle to separate the garage space from, I had a remodeling business, so I had a lot of tools and some material in here, so I wanted that physically separated. I'll show you a little bit of the other side. There's the other side, and the very front and some other areas where the floor was cracked and heaved up because there was some water, especially near the front here, was getting underneath parts of the slab. And this is an old, like a machine shed kind of building, built in the early 1900s, probably around 1920. So it's not a floating slab. It's kind of a hodgepodge of pores over the years, and that was part of the issue. Some of those were heaved up, and of course they didn't have any rebar in there in between the existing and some new pours that they put in. Also, this garage was extended by the previous owners, so they just cut off the wall and extended it and just patched in the concrete floor there. So I'll show you more of that side when we get over there. But I had to grind a lot of this down, the high spots. Even on this side here, especially the front right here, about in this area, this was broken, kind of heaved up. So I got out the broken and loose concrete and re-poured those areas, got some wire in there and some bar in there. And then I've been going over this with a couple of different products for dealing with the concrete floor. A lot of this is just a type S mortar mix where I had to build it up a lot, and some of it was even a concrete mix. So yeah, I've been working on this for a few months now. It was below over there, and in here I had to build it up a lot. And then I went over it with some mortar and some of this product I'll show you here. It's a concrete patch and resurfacer. This is a poly modified product, so you just mix with water. You don't need any other special solution, special milk to add with it. It's supposed to bond to the concrete the way it is, just adding some water. When I did grind the high spots down, I did go over the whole floor in both bays, and that's what these grooves are all about here. That gave me more surface area for the products that I'm putting on top of that to grab onto that and adhere to it. So I'm kind of one step behind on this side. I'm a step ahead on that side over there. This product here is supposed to be pourable, and you're supposed to be able to squeegee it out. Well, I had all kinds of trouble with trying to accomplish both of those because they say to mix it up in a 5-gallon bucket, and that's, I think it's a 50-pound bag. So putting the whole bag into their pre-measured amount of water and all that and mixing it, you know, as you're pouring it in, it just wasn't working. You just couldn't keep it mixed up. It has a lot of sand in it, so the sand was falling to the bottom of the bucket. And even though I kept trying to keep it mixed, I just couldn't keep it mixed up enough for where it was good and pourable and easily squeegeeable, if that's even a word. I was using this squeegee here, and because you couldn't really keep it mixed, the sand with the product, following the instructions, I've experimented with a little bit more water, a little less water. You know, I've done 4 bags of it, I think, already on that side over there. But you go to squeegee it out, and it was like you were hitting sandbars of sand, just gouging it up more. So I got a different tool that I'm going to try. So in between the squeegee and just a steel trowel, that's what I was applying pretty much everything with, even the mortar. When I was building up some areas, I would do that. Then I would let it set up and dry, then I would rub the high spots down with this rub block. But when I got to this product here, which was going to be the final product, the steel trowel and the squeegee, like I've already explained, it just wasn't working out because you just couldn't keep the product mixed well enough. So I'm going to do a half a bag at a time, see if I can keep it mixed well that way, and then I'm going to use this. This is actually just a drywall knife. My wife picked this up for me. I was hoping to get one that I could screw a handle into, but I couldn't find one at the stores around me. So this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm just going to do it by hand with this drywall knife, mud knife. Okay, this is the other bay. This is the right hand bay. And you can see by the different colors that the product just wasn't staying mixed. This has already been a couple days. It's supposed to be dry in 6 hours. And this has already been a couple days of drying. So you can see the discoloration. There's more sand here in the darker gray areas and more of just Portland cement and whatever else is in the product. So it all seems hard enough to be a wear surface, whether it's the sand, more of the sand or more of the other part of the product. So I'm just going to let it dry some more. I had a fan going on. I'm trying to dry up the more of the thicker areas. And this was supposed to go up to 1/2 inch. So when I say thicker area, I mean, you know, half or less. You can feather out to 0, to nothing. But I'm going to mix up just half a bag at a time and use that knife and just go over it by hand. To get down on my hands and knees and just pour some out and go over it by hand. Again, this is the right side of the garage, the right side bay, and this was equally damaged. The front sections here were broken and heaved up. I had some water issue here. I took care of that first. I paid somebody to pour me a new big sill out here and have it directed away from the opening of the garage. I took care of a downspout problem over here. I'll show you what I did there. Little area of the roof up here that was dumping water through the years in this little corner right here. I just thought it was such a little amount of water, I wasn't really worrying about it. But I think that added to the problem because the water would get underneath the concrete and then it would freeze and thaw cycles over the years, made that worse. It was already pretty bad when we purchased the house 32 years ago, but it did get worse, and I just did some band-aids myself on it early on. Now that we're getting ready to put the house up for sale again, I'm doing a better job of addressing the issue. So what I did is I put that flashing up there to divert the water from dumping here. It would go on this little addition to the side here. It would flow down onto that roof and then dump into a gutter and a downspout and take it farther out away from the building, away from this area here. So that's what we got going on here, dealing with the concrete and in between working on the vehicle problems that have developed, different trips of trying to get stuff moved 600 miles away and put in storage. So I'm getting the vehicle more ready again for another trip, and hopefully on this trip I don't get any bad gas like I thought I got on the last trip. But have a spare filter with me, a fuel filter, and I always bring tools, so we'll see how that goes. But this is what I'm working on, these two things right here. The garage floor and fine-tuning the running of the Suburban, the tow vehicle. Okay, we'll call this side done. In between the brackets with the red plastic separators on them, I did add some of the black separators that I bought previously, just in case some of the plastic softens up from the heat. It does get really hot in this engine compartment. I noticed when I was on a trip, geez, I'd open the hood, it just seemed like the sun was inside my engine compartment, blaring back at me. But the temperature gauge never really moved off its 180. I think I have a 180 thermostat in here. There are left and rights to these brackets as well. So this is the right side or the passenger side of the engine in the engine compartment. So I have one set of brackets on that side. Now I'll go over to the other side, which is actually kind of harder to deal with over there because of the steering shaft comes down there. A lot of the air conditioning is on the front of the engine, so that's not an issue. Lots of times on a V8 engine, the air conditioning is more off. It's all over to one side, particularly this side, and that can be an issue. But this engine is laid out. One thing that's laid out on this engine better is the compressor is on the opposite side. So as you can see over here, there's more things in the way here. I got the Hydro Boost system. This is the power brake system, works off the power steering pump. It gets assistance from there. This is a larger, heavier duty vehicle, so a lot of the heavier duty trucks have this setup. Supposed to be a more reliable setup for the power brakes. It does have its own issues though. And for one is it's got all these lines in the way here. I'm just going to duplicate what I did on the other side as far as these brackets go and see how it works out. You know, it holds the wires out of the way, especially of the steering shaft, because that rotates back and forth. It's got some kind of rough edges on there, some sharp edges even, and don't want those rubbing on the wires. Also on the other side, I had to give these brackets a little bend, give them a little sweeping motion towards the back of the engine compartment. Okay, so the left side, or the driver's side, is done now. Another problem with this side over here is right here. That's a EGR pipe, exhaust gas recirculation pipe, and it gets hot. It, of course, comes off the exhaust, and it's got some insulation around there. but it's a little tattered in some areas. And so the spark plug wires have to run under that. And this is a Belden set of wires. It seems like the longest ones, which you need over on this side of the engine, because the distributor sits a little off center to the passenger side. The longer ones just seem just a little too long, and so you have this kind of extra you have to try to do something with. And you have that exhaust, that EGR pipe right there. So I'll zoom you in a little closer so you can see more of what's going on. So here's number 1 cylinder. Let me zoom you out a little. Here's number 1 cylinder 357. You see how they all had a run there, and then they sweep up over the valve cover, and then right where this kind of frayed clothy looking material, that's the exhaust pipe, the EGR pipe, and it goes underneath this wiring harness. So, and there's a metal bracket here that helps hold this wiring harness up off of that heat from that EGR pipe, and the spark plug wires have to go underneath the EGR pipe. For how long the spark plug wires are, some of them, you could almost run them up with this wiring harness here, but then it would take too sharp of a curve down and get plugged into the distributor cap, so that's no good. The wires have to run on top of the valve cover underneath the EGR pipe. And this is the steering shaft right here. You can see there's some sharper edges on this, whatever it is. I've replaced that shaft. I don't remember what that is there, but some kind of brackety material there. I'm half tempted to wrap something around that if I can think of something. This only goes up so far. This kind of corrugated rubber piece. The steering shaft is extendable, so you can get it in there when you replace it, and that's what that covers up, the extendable part, but it doesn't cover up this here. And there were some nicks in my old wires, some pretty good nicks in there. That's why I'm replacing them. The wires actually weren't that old, but what I had for separating and holding the wires up wasn't adequate, and so some of it came down, and a couple wires were getting rubbed by that steering shaft there. I'm not real happy with this red plastic just because of the temperature of the motor. They were already getting soft and popping off the bracket, so I added a bunch of these black ones, separators. They're just separators, no brackets, to try to make kind of a wiring harness out of these spark plug wires, although separated. Give it some more rigidity so this doesn't have a tendency to pull off. So I tweaked them back with some pliers, tweaked this back and bent it up towards the valve cover. Each one of these brackets has a little bit different bend to it to accomplish what I'm accomplishing here. This Moroso set for these brackets came with some different separators, but these fit on the wires too loose as compared to the black ones. The black ones I had bought originally, and I don't remember where I got them. I'd have to look up on my receipts. They go on there, but they also come off a lot easier. So I'm going with the black ones in between the Moroso brand of brackets. I think that's going to be it on the wires. I'm going to replace this coil here, this bracket that the coil goes on. normally bolts to the rear of the upper intake. This is the upper intake, and there's a fuel rail system underneath here. It's kind of a pain to work on. It's not the greatest design. And this bracket, which holds the coil and the ignition module, the $160 item that I talked about earlier, and this bracket bolts onto the back of that upper intake right above the distributor. But it is a pain to get that in there because of this wiring harness and all this stuff. So I just been laying this bracket on top of the upper intake, and it's been that way for several years now. I was told by somebody that because these heat fins are on there, it's likely that this should have to be on the back because, to get the proper airflow. But, there's a lot of heat back there. This EGR valve and the exhaust pipes going down there, a lot of heat comes up behind there. I think it's just better off laying on top of the motor like that. I've had no issues with it. Like I said, the problem I was having with it wanting to stall on me wouldn't idle, I thought was a fuel issue. I've replaced these plugs and wires, cap and rotors, and I'm not having that issue anymore, the idle issue. There's still a little flutter to it. So I'm going to replace this coil now and drive it for a while and see how that goes. And then maybe this ignition control module. I'd like to return that thing because it was so darn expensive, but I'm going to hang on to it. And I've replaced both of these since I've owned the vehicle. I've owned the vehicle since, it's a 99. I've owned it since 2015. I bought it with 136 on it. And I believe it's got about 190 now. So, trying to make her last. Do what I need to do with it. Let's get after this coil. When I replace these plug wires and the coil wire, I put a little Vaseline around the inside of the boot to make it easier to go on, so I can feel the connection and not so much the rubber boot. And that way, if I needed to change them or swap them wires to get them to all lay better, be less chance of damaging the wire by pulling it off. Evidently, the nut to the other screw that holds this all together was missing. Dug up some new screws, and they provide new screws. That sure was nice of them. Except I'm putting the old coil back on. Okay, but I got new screws on. Okay, let's throw the correct part at it. New part. That's what you gotta do sometimes. I paid a dealership $200 for do some diagnosis on this, and what they come back with was just start replacing parts. So whenever you're down to that kind of problem solving, you gotta replace one part at a time or a few parts at a time. I didn't replace the coil the same time as I replaced the plugs, wires, cap, and rotor, because I knew the wires were nicked up. I knew those were going to be an issue. The plugs actually looked great when I took them out. Even the back cylinders, which sometimes those rear cylinders will start to fail on you, those looked really good. I was really surprised at how much the distributor cap was, though. It was like $70. And of course, if I would have priced all these parts and bought them online, all the parts, it would have made it more worthwhile having to pay the shipping. I probably would have saved, $70, $80 maybe. But I went to my local Napa store, and this is what I have. So this is the next step, replacing the coil. The module, like I say, you can see it still has a sticker on it. I did replace that after I purchased the vehicle. How long after I purchased the vehicle, I don't remember. I'd have to look at my receipts. Put it back just on top of the engine, like I said. It normally bolts to the back of this upper intake. I have just been leaving it on top of there because I was years ago doing some troubleshooting, and I didn't want to keep fighting with that setup that GM had there. So that's the way it's going to ride. Let me get cleaned up, get some tools put away, put the air cleaner back on there. We'll see how she runs. I always hang on to the old parts for a while. This one was on there, likely it was working. You put a new part on there, it could be defective, so or soon afterwards it could let you down. If you got the old part, you can put the old part back in, so you get an exchange on the new part. You can put it back in the box that the new one came in, so I can easily identify it. I put it on the shelf in my garage and I don't know where it's at. Hey, it's in the box marked ignition foil. What do you know about that? I paid a shop some years ago to do some troubleshooting for me. I got the vehicle back, and this resonator was turned sideways. It was cracked, and I can tell somebody took their fist and just went like that, broke it. The dipstick was like not locked down, was pulled out, and the cruise control cable was not on. That's how I got the vehicle back. So I'm really hesitant to allow anybody to work on my vehicles with the stuff like that. But I do it when I have to. 650. About 550 in gear. Wouldn't even run before. Vacuum park, it creeps up to about 650, where it should be. All right, well that's kind of a wrap for working on the Suburban anyway. It was kind of rough the other morning. That's why I decided to change the coil. It's kind of rough, just starting it up, letting it warm up for a while, and driving outside of town. But outside of town is a new paved road, and both with my wife's car and this vehicle, sometimes we're going down that newer paved road and it's got like a little washboardiness to it. So it's hard to troubleshoot out some running issues with your vehicle. And you have to take into account everything, you know. Right now it's the warmer part of the day, so the tires are softer. I didn't really experience that washboardiness. So that could be part of the issue. I lost the wheel weights. I know the other day I found this laying in the grass where I parked my vehicle to change a fuel filter from underneath. I'll show you the wheels that this goes on. So these are the wheels that the weights don't want to stay on. So that could be part of the issue. So I'm going to drive it for a few days, probably let it sit for 2 days so some moisture kind of creeps in. I feel maybe that was an issue with the coil. Maybe it had some slight cracks in it. Some moisture was creeping in there, causing a little flutter to it. I don't feel that flutter or hear that flutter now. But to replace a part, you drive it for a while. Still got some other issue, maybe you gotta replace another part and drive it for a while. Can't do a bunch at once, and you have to take into consideration temperature and humidity. That's both of those are factors with trying to troubleshoot an issue. So that's it for now. The next video will be on finishing up resurfacing the garage floor. I haven't done any videos on that. I have at least one before picture. I'll show you how bad it was when I first started. I don't have any pictures of me doing the grinding of the floor because I figured that was going to kill my arms and I was going to be down for a week or more. Surprisingly, all that hanging onto that machine, I actually did pretty well. I had kind of had a period I had to ice for a while after that, but that wasn't nearly what I expected. So these stretches and exercises my chiropractor's been giving me evidently has been helping that arm situation out. It's too bad that I had to wait 9.5 years to finally get to somebody that could give me something that possibly be a solution or part of the solution. It's like working on a vehicle. You can't do everything at once. You got to trial and error or some diet issues. You know, it's hit or miss. It takes a while to figure things out. And that's even true with a vehicle. So that's what I'm doing here. It looks like I'm getting ahead of it. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. That Old Shop. Thanks. Bye.